Right now, in this very moment, there may be another you watching this same video, making different choices. They said yes when you said no. And somewhere else, another you never clicked this video at all. The question isn't whether infinite universes exist, it's what it means if every path you didn't take is still being walked. If every version of your life is real somewhere, then what does real even mean? And more importantly, what does it mean for the life you're living right now? I'm going to be honest with you, this conversation we're about to have isn't going to comfort you in the traditional sense. I'm not going to tell you everything happens for a reason, or that your life is unfolding according to some divine plan. What I'm going to share with you is stranger, more unsettling, and ultimately more liberating than any of those familiar consolations. Because here's what most people don't understand about the multiverse. They think it's an abstract idea, something for physicists to debate in journals, or for science fiction writers to play with in their stories. But if the multiverse is real, and there are very good reasons to think it might be, then it changes everything about how you understand your regrets, your choices, your identity, and what your life actually means. You've been carrying something heavy, haven't you? Maybe it's a decision you made years ago that you can't stop replaying. Maybe it's a relationship that ended, a career path you didn't take, a version of yourself you feel you should have become. You lie awake at night sometimes, wondering what would have happened if you'd chosen differently. And that wondering has a particular texture to it, a specific kind of grief that feels both abstract and crushingly real. What if I told you that grief isn't irrational? What if the reason you can't let go of those other possibilities is because, in a very real sense, they're actually happening? Not in your imagination, not as mere possibilities, but as actual, lived realities in other branches of the universe. Most people think the multiverse makes life meaningless. If every outcome occurs, if every choice leads to a different universe, where you made the opposite choice, then what's the point? Why does anything matter? But I've come to believe the opposite is true. The multiverse doesn't drain life of meaning. It reveals that meaning was never something you could find out there in the structure of reality. Meaning is something you create through the act of conscious attention. And understanding that difference, really feeling it in your bones, changes everything. So here's what we're going to do together. I'm going to walk you through what the multiverse actually is, not as an abstract physics concept, but as a lived experience. We're going to explore what it means for your identity, your regrets, your choices, and your responsibility to this particular version of your life. And I'm going to give you practical ways to live with this knowledge without being paralyzed by it. This isn't going to be easy. We're going to sit with some uncomfortable truths. But I promise you, on the other side of this discomfort is a kind of clarity that might be exactly what you've been searching for. Let me start by telling you a story. It's not exactly a story in the traditional sense. It's more of a thought experiment, something physicists have contemplated for decades, but I want you to experience it from the inside, as if it were happening to you. Imagine you're sitting in a room. In front of you is a device, a simple machine connected to something called a quantum particle detector. Now, quantum particles behave in very strange ways. They exist in what physicists call superposition, meaning they're in multiple states at once until they're measured. This particular device is measuring the spin of a particle every second. It checks whether the particle is spinning up or spinning down. It's a true 50-50 chance, determined by the fundamental randomness at the heart of quantum mechanics. Here's where it gets dark. If the particle measures a spin up, nothing happens. You sit there perfectly safe. But if it measures a spin down, the device kills you instantly. Painlessly, but instantly. Every single second, your life is on the line. A coin flip, a 50-50 chance of existence, or obliteration. Now, from the perspective of someone watching you from outside the room, the mathematics is straightforward. After 1 second, there's a 50% chance you're dead. After 2 seconds, 75%. After 10 seconds, you're almost certainly gone. The odds of you surviving even a few minutes are astronomically small. But here's what haunts me about this thought experiment. From your perspective, from the inside of your own consciousness, something completely different happens. You can never experience your own death. Think about that for a moment, because consciousness, by its very nature, can only exist in the branches of reality where you continue to be conscious. So even though the universe splits every second, with half the branches containing your death and half containing your survival, you only ever experience the branches where you survive. Second after second, against increasingly impossible odds, you keep living. 10 seconds pass, 20, 100. From the outside, this seems miraculous, impossibly lucky. But from the inside, from your subjective experience, it's just what's happening. You're not lucky. You're simply the version of yourself that exists in the ever-narrowing branch of realities where survival continued. Now, I want you to step out of that thought experiment and look at your actual life. How many times have you nearly died without knowing it? That car that swerved at the last second, that illness your body fought off while you slept, the random violence that happened 1 block over, 5 minutes before you walked by, the electrical fire that almost started in your walls but didn't. We move through the world assuming we're on some neutral default timeline. But what if that's not true? What if you're already living in the unlikely branch, the improbable survival, the timeline where, against odds you can't even calculate, you're still here? And if that's true, if you're already the version of yourself that made it through 1,000 invisible near-deaths, then what do you owe to this particular timeline? What does it mean to be the consciousness that happens to be in this branch? I'll tell you what I think it means, but first let me give you another image, another way of understanding this. Imagine you're standing in a garden. It's not a normal garden, though. Every path you could possibly walk is somehow already being walked by another version of you. You can't see these other versions. The garden doesn't work that way, but you know they're there. You can sense them in the way you sense a presence in a dark room. One version of you took the left path and found love under an apple tree. Another took the right path and discovered a calling, a purpose that filled them with meaning. Another version sat down right at the entrance, paralyzed by choice, and never moved at all. This is what the quantum garden looks like. Every decision point, every moment of your life is a place where the path forks. And in the mathematics of quantum mechanics, when we take the equations seriously without adding arbitrary collapse mechanisms, all those forks are real. They all happen. The universe doesn't choose. It includes. Now here's what has haunted me for years about this image. You might spend your entire life grieving the paths you didn't take. You might lie awake at night thinking about the love under the apple tree or the calling on the right path, consumed by regret, by the feeling that you made the wrong choice, that you missed something essential. But in the quantum garden, you didn't miss them. Another you is living them right now. Your grief isn't about what didn't happen. It's about what did happen. Just not to this version of you. You're mourning actual lived realities that you can't access, can't communicate with, can't experience. It's a strange kind of grief. You're mourning someone who isn't dead. They're living their life. They're just in a branch of reality that yours can never touch. And here's where it gets interesting. This realization doesn't erase the grief. I wish it did, but it doesn't. What it does is transform the nature of the grief. It shifts from I made the wrong choice to I am experiencing one coherent story among infinite stories, and this specific story is mine to witness. I've spent a lot of my life walking through forests, rainforests mostly, places where thousands of seeds fall from a single tree, and maybe one, maybe two, actually take root and grow. The rest decay, become food for other life, return to the soil. And we don't stand in those forests mourning every seed that didn't grow. We don't grieve every potential tree. Instead, we witness the improbable beauty of the one tree that did grow, the one that somehow found the right combination of light and water and soil and luck. Perhaps that's what the multiverse is asking of us. Not to grieve the infinite versions we aren't living, but to bear witness with absolute attention, with fierce presence, to the singular version we are living. Not because it's the best version, not because it's the right version, but because it's the one we're conscious in. And that consciousness that witnessing, that's not nothing. That might be everything. In quantum mechanics, there's a process called decoherence. It's the moment when superposition, when all those multiple possibilities existing at once, collapses into one definite state. Well, not collapses exactly, that's the old language. What really happens is that the different possibilities become so separated, so unable to interfere with each other, that from the inside of any one branch, it feels like collapse. It feels like reality has chosen. But experientially, for you, for your consciousness, decoherence is the moment when infinite possibility becomes one lived life. It's the transition from everything to something, from potential to actual. And that transition, that narrowing, that might be the only miracle that actually matters. Because here's the thing, you can spend your entire life grieving what's happening in other branches. You can dissociate from this timeline, always feeling like you're living the wrong life, always sensing that somewhere else, another you is getting it right. Or you can do something different. You can ask yourself, what if the point isn't to choose the right path? What if the point is to honor the path you're already walking with fierce, unrelenting attention? Now, I need to explain something about the physics here, because I don't want you to think I'm speaking metaphorically. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is a real, seriously considered scientific theory. It was proposed in 1957 by a physicist named Hugh Everett. He was a graduate student at the time, and his thesis was so radical that most of his professors didn't know what to do with it. Here's what Everett said: when we do the mathematics of quantum mechanics, when we write down the wave function that describes a quantum system, that wave function evolves in a completely deterministic way. There's an equation called the Schrödinger equation, and it tells us exactly how the wave function changes over time. No randomness, no probability, just pure deterministic evolution. But then something strange happens when we make a measurement. Suddenly, the wave function seems to collapse. All those multiple possibilities that were existing in superposition suddenly become just one, and we get a specific outcome. The particle is here, not there. Spin up, not spin down. This photon went through this slit, not that one. The traditional Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics says this collapse is real. Measurement does something fundamental to reality. But there's a problem with this. What counts as a measurement? Where in the process does the collapse happen? Is it when the photon hits the detector? When the detector's pointer moves? When a conscious observer looks at the detector? When the observer's brain processes the information? The more you try to pin down where the collapse happens, the more arbitrary it seems. It starts to feel like we're adding something to the mathematics, an extra mechanism that isn't really there in the equations themselves. Everett had a different idea. What if the collapse never happens? What if the wave function just keeps evolving deterministically, including everything, the measuring device, the observer, the environment, all of it? In that case, when a quantum measurement occurs, the universe doesn't choose one outcome. It includes all outcomes, but in separate, non-interacting branches. From the perspective of any observer inside one of those branches, it looks like collapse. They see one definite outcome. But that's because they're correlated with that outcome. Their consciousness, their memories, their entire physical existence is now part of that branch. The other branches still exist. Other versions of them are in those branches, seeing different outcomes. But the branches have become decoherent. They can't communicate. They can't interfere with each other. This is the many worlds interpretation. And here's what most people don't realize. It's not some wild speculation. It's actually the most straightforward reading of the mathematics. You don't have to add anything. You just take the Schrödinger equation seriously and follow where it leads. Now, I'm not saying this is definitely true. Science doesn't work that way. But what I am saying is that this is a serious, mathematically consistent possibility. And if it's true, if this is the way reality actually works, then the implications are staggering. Because think about what it means. Every quantum event, and there are countless quantum events happening every moment in your brain, in the air around you, in the light hitting your eyes, every one of those events is a branching point. Most of the differences are microscopic. completely undetectable. One version of you has a neuron fire 1 millisecond earlier than another version, but some of those differences amplify. They cascade through the chaotic systems of your brain, your body, your decisions, the world around you, until they lead to dramatically different lives. You make a decision to turn left instead of right, and you meet someone who changes everything, or you don't meet them. Both happen. A driver is distracted by their phone at exactly the moment they would have hit you. Or they're not distracted, and the accident happens. Both occur in different branches. The mathematics doesn't care what we think about this. The wave function evolves according to its equation, indifferent to our comfort or our intuitions. But we have to live with it. We have to exist inside this structure, making choices, forming identities, trying to create meaning. And that brings me to the question that I think is at the heart of all of this. If every version of you exists across infinite branches, then which one is really you? It's a question that dissolves the moment you ask it properly, because you is already not continuous, even in regular non-quantum physics. Think about it. The atoms in your body are constantly being replaced. Every few years, almost every atom that makes up your physical form has been exchanged with your environment. The you of 10 years ago shares almost nothing physical with the you of now. And yet you claim continuity. You say you're the same person. What persists isn't the matter, it's the pattern. You're a process, not a thing, like a whirlpool in a river. The water is constantly changing, flowing through and being replaced. But the whirlpool persists as a pattern, a structure in the flow. Or think of it like a melody. A melody persists even though the notes are constantly changing. You can play the same melody at different speeds, in different keys, on different instruments, and it's still recognizably the same melody. Because what makes it a melody isn't the specific sounds, it's the relationship between them, the pattern they form. You are a pattern of information, a process unfolding through time. And that's true whether we're talking about one universe or many universes. But the multiverse adds another layer to this. Your pattern exists in countless variations simultaneously. Some versions of you are nearly identical. They just wore a blue shirt instead of a red one today. The quantum events that led to that difference were tiny, insignificant. Others are radically different. They moved to a different country. They married a different person. They developed different traumas, different joys, different ways of understanding the world. And here's the paradox. You are utterly unique. No other version of you, anywhere in the multiverse, has your exact history, your exact sequence of experiences, your exact configuration of memories and understanding. This specific you, reading these specific words, in this specific moment, will never exist again anywhere ever. And at the same time, you are utterly replaceable. Countless versions of you are extremely similar, different in tiny ways that don't really matter. If this version of you ceased to exist, there are other versions that would carry on, living lives so close to yours that the difference is negligible. You are cosmically unique and cosmically irrelevant, both at once. And that shouldn't comfort you or disturb you. It should free you. Because if identity is this fluid, this probabilistic, if the you that you think is so solid and fixed is actually just one possible configuration of a pattern, then the prison of who you are is mostly a story you've been defending. Think about all the ways you limit yourself, all the things you say you can't do, can't be, can't become, because they're not you. You say things like, I'm not the kind of person who takes risks. I'm not creative. I'm not good with people. I'm not brave. As if these statements are fundamental truths about your nature, as immutable as your height or your eye color. But the multiverse reveals that you could have been, that you are somewhere radically different. And if that's true, if another version of you made different choices and became a different person, then who you are right now is more chosen than determined. You've been defending an identity that was partly circumstance, partly habit, partly fear. And the multiverse gives you permission to acknowledge that. It lets you see that the person you think you are is one possibility among many. And that means the person you could become is also possible. Not in some other universe. Here, in this timeline. Because the same quantum randomness, the same unpredictability that creates different branches, is still happening inside you right now. Your brain is a quantum system. Your thoughts, your decisions, your moment-to-moment awareness, all of it is influenced by quantum events that are fundamentally unpredictable. You are not fixed. You are not determined. You are a process of becoming, unfolding moment by moment, influenced by forces you can't control, but also by choices you can make. And that brings me to regret. Because if we're honest, regret is probably the reason most of us are here, listening to this, trying to understand what the multiverse means. We're haunted by the roads not taken, the lives we didn't live, the people we didn't become. Traditional therapy, traditional wisdom, tells you to release regret by accepting that the past is fixed. What's done is done. You can't change it, so you need to let it go and move forward. And there's some truth to that. Ruminating on the past, endlessly replaying your mistakes, that's not helpful. It keeps you stuck. But if the multiverse is real, then the advice is based on a false premise. Because the past isn't fixed, not in totality. The version of you that made a different choice, that took the other path, that version exists and is living that alternative present right now. So what is regret really? What are you actually feeling when you lie awake at night thinking about what could have been? I think regret is the experience of being aware of the branching without being able to communicate across branches. You sense the other possibilities because they're real. Your consciousness, in some way we don't fully understand, is aware that there are other yous, other timelines, other lives being lived, but you can't reach them. You can't access them. You can't experience them. It's a strange form of grief. You're mourning someone who isn't dead. They're alive, living their life, experiencing their joys and sorrows. But they're in a branch of reality that yours can never touch. No communication is possible. No reunion. They're forever separate, forever parallel, forever lost to you. And that's genuinely sad. I don't want to minimize that. The multiverse doesn't make regret irrational. If anything, it reveals why regret has always felt so persistent, so hard to shake. You're not grieving something that didn't happen. You're grieving something that did happen, just not to you. But here's where it gets interesting. If that other life is really being lived by another version of you, then what are you actually mourning? You're not mourning the possibility. The possibility was actualized. It happened. Some version of you is living it right now. What you're mourning is your inability to experience it. You're mourning the fact that your consciousness is bound to this branch, this timeline, this specific sequence of experiences. You're mourning the limitation of being a singular perspective, a single stream of awareness, when you intuitively sense that there are other streams, other perspectives, other lives. And once you understand that, once you really feel it, the nature of the regret changes. It becomes less about, I made the wrong choice, and more about, I'm experiencing one story among many stories, and I can't experience them all. And that's still sad. But it's a different kind of sadness. It's not the sadness of failure or mistake. It's the sadness of finitude, of being limited, of being bound to one timeline when you're aware of the infinite timelines branching around you. And that sadness, I think, is actually appropriate. It's the right response to the structure of reality. You should feel some grief about the lives you're not living, not because you did something wrong, but because they're real and you can't access them. But then, and this is crucial, you have to turn toward the life you are living. You have to ask yourself, if all these other lives are real, if all these other versions of me exist, then what makes this version, this timeline, this life significant? And the answer, the only answer that makes any sense to me, is consciousness, attention, witness. All the timelines exist equally in the wave function, in the mathematical structure of reality. None of them is more real than any other. But your consciousness, your subjective experience, your awareness is bound to this one. And that binding, that anchoring of consciousness to a specific timeline is what makes this timeline matter. Not objectively, not from some God's eye view, but from the only perspective that matters to you, which is your own. Think about it this way. If there's a movie with multiple possible endings, and all the endings exist as filmed footage, none of them is more real than any other. They all exist. But when you watch the movie, you watch one ending, and that ending becomes your experience of the movie. Your choices don't change what exists in the wave function. All possibilities are still there, still real. But your choices determine which branch your consciousness experiences, which timeline you witness. And witness is the right word, because you're not just living your life, you're observing it, you're aware of it. And that awareness, that consciousness, is what distinguishes this timeline from all the others you're not experiencing. In all those other timelines, there are versions of you, and they're conscious too, and for them, their timeline is the one that matters. But you're not them, you're this one. And this one needs you to pay attention to it. I want to talk about meaning now, because this is where most people get stuck. They hear about the multiverse, they understand the implications, and they think, if every possibility exists, then nothing is special. Every triumph in my life is also a failure somewhere else. Every love is also a loss. Every meaning I create is also absent. It seems to drain everything of significance. If all outcomes occur, why does anything matter? Why bother trying, choosing, caring, when every possible result exists somewhere? And I understand that response. I've felt it myself. But I think it's based on a misunderstanding of what meaning is. We've been taught to think of meaning as something we find, something that exists out there in the world, waiting to be discovered. We look for it in religion, in purpose, in our relationships, in our work. We ask questions like, what's the meaning of life? As if there's an answer that exists independent of us. But the multiverse reveals that this whole framework is wrong. Meaning doesn't exist out there, it never did. The universe doesn't care. Reality, at its most fundamental level, is indifferent. All possibilities exist equally. No outcome is preferred. No timeline is special. And that seems nihilistic. It seems to suggest that nothing matters. But flip it. If inherent meaning doesn't exist, if the universe doesn't provide meaning, then meaning must be something else entirely. Meaning must be created by conscious attention. The universe gives you every possibility. It doesn't discriminate, it doesn't judge, it doesn't say this life is meaningful and this one isn't. But you, your consciousness, your awareness, you can make that distinction. You can choose what to pay attention to. You can decide what matters. It's like being in a museum of infinite art. Every possible painting, every possible sculpture, every possible work of human creativity, it's all there. And objectively, no piece is better than any other. They all exist. They're all equally real. But when you walk through that museum, you stop at certain pieces. You give them your attention. You contemplate them. You let them affect you. And in that moment, those pieces become significant. Not because they're objectively better, but because you're witnessing them. Your attention, your consciousness creates their significance for you. Your life is like that. All possible lives exist in the multiverse. None of them is objectively more meaningful. But the one you're conscious in, the one you're witnessing, that one becomes meaningful through your attention. This is terrifying and liberating at the same time. It's terrifying because you can't appeal to cosmic justice or divine plan to tell you what matters. You can't look outside yourself for validation, for confirmation that you're living the right life. The universe genuinely doesn't care. All versions exist equally, but it's liberating because it means you get to choose. You have to choose. What makes your life meaningful isn't written in the stars. It's created by your moment-to-moment decision to pay attention, to care, to witness. And that's not arbitrary, it's not performative, it's the most real thing there is. Because consciousness, awareness, attention, that's the only thing that makes any timeline more than just an abstract possibility in the wave function. Let me tell you what this looks like practically, because I don't want this to just be philosophy. I want you to be able to live with this. There's an exercise I do, and I want you to try it. It takes about 60 seconds. You can do it right now if you want, or you can do it later. whenever you feel overwhelmed by regret or paralyzed by choice or dissociated from your own life. First, become aware that this moment is one branch of infinite moments. Really feel that. Somewhere, another you is experiencing this differently. They're more skeptical, or more open. They're distracted, or completely focused. One version already stopped watching this. One will replay this part 10 times. Just acknowledge that. All those versions are real. They're happening. And then anchor into this version, this specific moment, your specific body in space. Feel the weight of your body wherever you're sitting or standing. Feel the texture of your breath, the temperature of the air, the specific quality of light around you, and say to yourself, internally or out loud, I am the version of me witnessing this exact moment. I honor this branch by giving it my full attention. That's it. That's the whole exercise. But what it does is profound. It acknowledges the reality of the multiverse, the infinite branches, the other versions, but then it anchors you here, in this timeline, in this body, in this moment. And that anchoring is an act of meaning creation. You're not saying this is the best timeline. You're not saying you made all the right choices. You're saying this is the timeline I'm conscious in, and that makes it mine to witness. Do this once a day at least. When you feel regret creeping in, when you're lying awake thinking about what could have been, when you're scrolling through social media, looking at other people's lives and feeling like you're living wrong, stop and do this exercise. It won't make the regret disappear. It won't make the other timelines less real, but it will bring you back to the one thing you actually have control over, which is your attention, your presence, your witness. Now, there's another practice I want to share with you, and this one's about gratitude, but it's a different kind of gratitude than you're probably used to. Traditional gratitude practice says, be grateful for what you have, count your blessings, notice the good things in your life. And that's fine, that's helpful, but it's based on the assumption that you could have had less, that you're lucky to have what you do. Multiverse gratitude is different. It's not about being grateful for what you have versus what you don't have. It's about being grateful that you're the version experiencing this specific configuration. Not because it's the luckiest configuration, not because it's the best, but because it's yours, because it's the one you're conscious in. So here's the practice. Every night, before you go to sleep, name 3 specific details of your timeline that make it distinct. And I mean specific. Not vague things like I'm grateful for my health or I'm grateful for my family, but details, textures, particularities. I'm grateful I'm the version who had coffee taste exactly like this today, slightly bitter with that specific note of caramel at the end. I'm grateful I'm the version who heard that specific bird outside the window at 3 p.m., that particular chirp that I'll probably never hear exactly that way again. I'm grateful I'm the version who stumbled over that thought about my mother, that memory that surfaced unbidden and made me smile. Do you see the difference? You're not comparing. You're not saying I'm grateful I have coffee when others don't. You're simply acknowledging the specific texture of your timeline, the unrepeatable details that make this branch yours. This practice does something subtle. It makes your timeline specific rather than abstract. It transforms your life from a life among infinite lives to this life, with its unrepeatable texture, its singular qualities. And over time, you start to notice more. You start to pay attention to the details that make your experience yours. And that attention, that noticing, that's what creates the significance of your timeline. Now, let me talk about choice, because this is where people get really stuck. They understand the multiverse intellectually, they get that all choices lead to different branches, and then they become paralyzed. They stand at decision points, unable to move, because they're aware that every choice creates a divergence, a split, and they're terrified of choosing wrong. I've been there. I know what that paralysis feels like. You're at a crossroads, and you can sense the branches spreading out before you, and you want to see all of them, experience all of them, or at least know which one is best before you commit. But you can't. You're bound to one timeline. You have to choose something. So here's a practice for when that paralysis hits. When you're facing a decision, and the multiverse vertigo overwhelms you. First, acknowledge the truth. Say to yourself, all choices will be made by some version of me. I cannot avoid any outcome in totality. This isn't resignation, it's just honesty. Whatever you choose, there's a branch where you chose differently. The totality of the wave function includes all possibilities. But then, and this is the key, ask yourself this question: which choice allows the version of me in this branch to stay most present, most aligned with witnessing this specific life? Not which choice leads to the best outcome. You can't know that. The future is uncertain, chaotic, unpredictable. Not which choice you should make according to some external standard or expectation, but which choice lets you stay anchored in this timeline rather than dissociated and mourning parallel lives. Because here's what happens when you make a choice based on regret avoidance, on trying to prevent future regret. You're not really present in the choice. You're imagining future versions of yourself in different branches, trying to satisfy all of them. And that's impossible. You'll always wonder what the other branches held. But if you make a choice based on presence, based on which path allows you to stay most connected to this timeline, then even if things don't work out the way you hoped, even if you later wish you'd chosen differently, you'll know you were present. You were there. You were witnessing. And presence, attention, witness, that's what makes a timeline yours. Not the outcomes, not whether things worked out well or poorly, but whether you were there, fully, consciously, paying attention. Write that question down. Put it somewhere, you'll see it when you're stuck. Which choice allows the version of me in this branch to stay most present, most aligned with witnessing this specific life? And then trust that. Trust that the other versions of you will take care of their timelines and you take care of this one. Now, I want to address something that might be bothering you. You might be thinking, if all timelines exist equally, if every version of me is real, then why should I try? Why should I make good choices, work hard, be kind, grow, change, any of it? If there's a version of me succeeding and a version failing, what difference does it make? And this is where people often misunderstand what the multiverse implies about responsibility. They think it means nothing matters because everything happens. But that's exactly backwards. The multiverse doesn't eliminate responsibility. It clarifies it. You're not responsible for the totality of the wave function. You can't control what happens in all branches, but you are responsible for this branch, the one you're conscious in. Think of it this way. Imagine you're a character in a book, and the book has been written with every possible plotline, every possible choice, every possible ending. All versions of the story exist, bound together in some cosmic library. You can't change what's in the library. All possibilities are already there. But you can choose which page you're reading, which version of the story you're experiencing. And that choice, moment by moment, is real. It has consequences. It shapes your subjective experience, your consciousness, your understanding of yourself. From the outside, from the perspective of the library, all stories are equal. But from the inside, from the perspective of the reader, the story you're actually reading is the one that matters. You are simultaneously that library and that reader. As a physical system in the wave function, you exist in all branches, but as a conscious being, you're anchored to one branch, reading one story. And that anchoring creates responsibility, because you're not just the story, you're the witness of the story. And how you witness it, whether you do it with presence or dissociation, with attention or avoidance, with kindness or cruelty, that shapes the quality of your experience. And here's the thing that really matters. The versions of you in other branches, they're dealing with their own experiences, their own challenges, their own choices. You can't help them. You can't communicate with them. But you can help this version. This you, right here, in this timeline. That's your sphere of influence. That's where your responsibility lies. And when you understand that, really understand it, the question shifts from why should I try to how can I best serve this particular timeline I'm witnessing? How can I be present for this specific version of my life? The answer isn't to optimize for outcomes. because outcomes are uncertain, chaotic, and frankly a bit arbitrary. The answer is to optimize for presence, for consciousness, for the quality of your attention. Let me tell you about someone I knew years ago. This was before I spent much time thinking about the multiverse, but the conversation has stayed with me. She was a researcher, brilliant, dedicated, and she'd spent 15 years working on a project that ultimately failed. The hypothesis was wrong. The data didn't support it. 15 years of her life seemingly wasted. And I remember sitting with her after she'd gotten the final results, and she was devastated. She kept saying, "I chose wrong. I should have worked on something else. I wasted my life." And I didn't know what to say to her at the time. The usual consolations felt hollow. You did your best. You couldn't have known. That's how science works. But now, thinking about it through the lens of the multiverse, I would say something different. I would say there's a version of you that chose differently, that worked on a different project. Maybe that version succeeded. Maybe they failed in a different way. But that version isn't you. You're the version that chose this project, that spent 15 years pursuing this question with full dedication. And that version, your version, was present, was engaged, was asking questions that mattered to you. And the fact that the answer wasn't what you hoped doesn't mean those 15 years lacked meaning. It means the meaning was in the pursuit, the attention, the consciousness you brought to the work, not in the outcome. Do you see the shift? The meaning wasn't out there in whether the hypothesis was correct. The meaning was in her awareness, her dedication, her presence to the work. And that was real, regardless of the outcome. Now, she might still wish she'd chosen differently. That's natural. But the wish isn't about some objective wrong choice. It's about the limitation of being one consciousness in one timeline, unable to experience all the other paths. And that limitation is real, but it's not a mistake. It's just the structure of existence. I want to talk about something else now, something that comes up a lot when people start really sitting with the multiverse. They start to feel dissociated, unreal, like they're not fully here, because they're aware of all the other timelines, all the other versions, and this one starts to feel arbitrary, thin, less solid. And I understand that. When you become aware that reality is branching constantly, that every moment could have gone differently, that this specific configuration of events is just one possibility among infinite possibilities, it can make everything feel insubstantial. But here's what I've learned. That feeling of unreality, that dissociation, it's not actually caused by the multiverse. It's caused by a misunderstanding of what real means. We think real means solid, fixed, permanent, the only way things could be. And when we discover that reality isn't like that, that it's fluid, probabilistic, constantly branching, we think we've discovered that nothing is real. But that's backwards. Reality was never solid and fixed, we just thought it was. The solidity was an illusion created by our limited perspective, our inability to perceive the quantum nature of things. The multiverse doesn't make reality less real. It reveals what reality actually is. And what it actually is more strange, more beautiful, more vast than we imagined. So when you feel that dissociation, when you feel like you're not fully here, that's not because this timeline is less real. It's because you're trying to hold on to an old definition of real that never applied in the first place. The cure for that dissociation isn't to deny the multiverse or to stop thinking about it. The cure is to anchor more deeply into the reality of this branch, to feel the texture of your experience more fully, to become more present, not less. Because this timeline, this specific sequence of events that you're conscious in, is real. It's as real as anything gets. The fact that other timelines also exist doesn't diminish the reality of this one. They're all equally real. And the one you're in is the one that matters to you, because it's the one you're experiencing. So when that feeling comes, when you start to feel unmoored, floating, dissociated, do something physical. Feel your feet on the ground. Touch something with texture. Look at something with focused attention. Engage your senses fully. Bring yourself back to the immediate, vivid, undeniable reality of this moment, this body, this timeline. The multiverse is real. But so is this. Both things are true. Now, let's talk about death, because I know this is on people's minds, even if they don't say it directly. If the multiverse is real, what happens when we die? And the answer is strange. From the outside, from an objective perspective, you die in some branches and continue living in others. If there's a moment where your life could end, a car accident, a sudden illness, a violent encounter, the universe splits. In some branches, you die. In others, you survive. But from the inside, from your subjective experience, something different happens. Remember the quantum suicide thought experiment from earlier? Your consciousness can only continue in the branches where you survive. You can never experience your own death, because consciousness by definition requires being alive to experience anything. So from your perspective, you might have an increasingly improbable, increasingly unlikely series of narrow escapes. You might become the luckiest version of yourself, the one who keeps surviving against longer and longer odds. Some physicists call this quantum immortality. The idea that your subjective experience might continue indefinitely, always finding yourself in the branch where you survived, no matter how unlikely that branch becomes. Now, I have to be honest with you. I don't know if quantum immortality is real. It depends on some very subtle questions about the nature of consciousness and how it relates to physical systems. Questions we don't have answers to yet. But what I can tell you is this: if quantum immortality is true, if your consciousness really does continue indefinitely in some branch, then every moment you're alive is a moment you chose in some sense, or at least a moment your consciousness selected by virtue of continuing to exist. And if that's true, then the question becomes, how do you want to use this time, this improbable, unlikely, precious continuation of consciousness that you're experiencing right now? Not because you earned it, not because you deserve it more than anyone else, but simply because you're the one experiencing it, and that creates a kind of responsibility. On the other hand, if quantum immortality isn't true, if consciousness really does end permanently in death, then eventually, in this timeline, your awareness will cease, and that makes this time even more precious. Because it's limited, finite, unrepeatable. Either way, whether your consciousness continues indefinitely across branches or ends permanently in this one, the answer is the same. Pay attention, be present, witness this specific life with as much awareness as you can bring to it. Because that's all you can do. That's all any of us can do. We're bound to one timeline, one stream of experience, and the quality of that experience depends on the quality of our attention. I want to tell you one more story before we start bringing this home. This one isn't about physics or thought experiments. It's about something I witnessed years ago in a forest in Borneo. I was filming a sequence about orangutans. We'd been following a particular female and her infant for several days, and one morning we arrived to find that the infant had fallen during the night, from high in the canopy. It wasn't clear whether the infant had slipped or if there had been a confrontation with another orangutan. But the infant was injured badly. It was clear it wouldn't survive. And I watched the mother with that infant for hours. She kept trying to rouse it, to get it to nurse, to cling to her. And when it couldn't, when it became clear that death was inevitable, she didn't leave. She stayed with it, held it. And there was something in her behavior, in the way she kept touching it, checking it, that looked unmistakably like grief. Now, I don't know what an orangutan experiences subjectively. I don't know if they have the same kind of self-awareness that humans do, or if they contemplate possibility and loss the way we do. But I know I recognize something in that mother. A quality of attention, a presence to death that felt sacred. She couldn't change what was happening. The infant was dying. That was the reality of her timeline, but she witnessed it. She was there, fully, attentively, with a quality of presence that I can only describe as devotional. And I think about that often when I'm contemplating the multiverse. Because yes, maybe in some other branch that infant didn't fall. Maybe in some other timeline, it grew to adulthood, had offspring of its own. But in the timeline that mother was in, the one she was conscious of, the infant died. And her response, wasn't to imagine other timelines, or to dissociate, or to wonder why. Her response was to be there, to witness, to honor that specific reality with her full presence. And I think that's what the multiverse asks of us. Not to become paralyzed by the infinite branches, not to dissociate into abstraction, but to be there fully for the timeline we're in. To honor it with our attention, even when it's painful, even when it's not what we would have chosen, even when we're aware that other versions exist. That mother orangutan taught me something about presence that I'm still learning from. She didn't have the cognitive burden of knowing about other timelines, but she showed me what it looks like to fully inhabit the one you're in, even in grief, especially in grief. Because grief is one of the ways we know we're alive, that we're conscious, that we're capable of presence. And the multiverse doesn't erase grief. It doesn't make loss less real, because other versions continue in other branches. If anything, it makes grief more poignant, because it reveals that we're mourning not just what didn't happen, but our inability to experience all the branches, to be with all the versions, to live all the lives. That's a profound kind of loss. The loss of infinity, the loss of omniscience, the loss of being able to experience everything. And we have to grieve that. We have to let ourselves feel the sadness of being finite, of being bound to one stream of consciousness, one timeline, one particular sequence of moments. But then we have to turn back to the timeline we're in and ask, how can I be present for this? How can I honor this with my attention? And when you do that, when you really commit to witnessing this timeline fully, something shifts. The other branches don't disappear. They're still there, you're still aware of them, but they become less of a distraction and more of a context. They remind you that this timeline is specific, particular, unrepeatable. And that makes it precious, not objectively precious. The universe doesn't care, but precious to you, because it's yours to experience. Let me bring this back to something concrete, something you can actually work with in your daily life. Because I don't want this to just be abstract philosophy. I want you to be able to use this. When you're going through your day, you're constantly making small choices. What to eat, what to wear, which route to take, how to respond to someone, whether to take a break or keep working. Most of these choices feel automatic. You don't really think about them. You just do what feels natural or habitual. But each of those choices is a branching point. Each one creates different timelines. And usually the differences are tiny, insignificant, but they accumulate over days, weeks, years. Those tiny choices add up to dramatically different lives. So here's a practice. Once a day, take one of those automatic choices and make it conscious. Just one, not every choice. That would be exhausting and paralyzing. But one choice per day, make it deliberate. When you're about to do something out of habit, pause. Acknowledge that this is a branching point. There are other versions of you making different choices right now. And then ask yourself, which choice aligns with the kind of consciousness I want to bring to this timeline? Not which choice leads to the best outcome. Not which choice other people would approve of, but which choice lets you stay present, aligned, witnessing. Maybe you habitually scroll social media when you're waiting in line. And today, you pause and choose differently. You look around instead. You notice the people, the light, the moment. That's a different branch, a tiny one, but it's a branch where you are more present, more conscious, more there. Or maybe you habitually respond to criticism with defensiveness. And today you pause. You acknowledge that response rising in you, and you choose curiosity instead. You ask a question rather than defending. That's a different branch. One where you are more open, more willing to be changed by what you encountered. These are small things, but they're real. They're moments where you exercise your agency, your ability to steer your consciousness through the infinite branches. And over time, those moments add up. They create a timeline where you are more present, more conscious, more alive. Not a better timeline in some objective sense, but a timeline characterized by awareness rather than habit, by choice rather than automaticity, by presence rather than dissociation. And that matters. That's what it means to take responsibility for your branch of the multiverse. Now, I want to address something that might be making you uncomfortable. This whole conversation might feel overwhelming. You might be thinking, I can't handle this. I can't live with the awareness of infinite branches, infinite versions, infinite possibilities. It's too much. I need to just focus on my life and not think about the multiverse. And you know what? That's okay. That's completely legitimate. You don't have to think about the multiverse all the time. You don't have to carry this awareness constantly. In fact, most of the time, you probably shouldn't. Because you're right. It can be overwhelming. But here's what I hope you take from this. Even if you don't think about the multiverse consciously, even if you go back to living your life without contemplating parallel branches, I hope this conversation has planted something in you. A seed of awareness that will change how you relate to regret, to choice, to identity. Because once you really understand that other versions of you exist, that the roads not taken are actually being traveled, you can't quite go back to the old story. The story that says you made the wrong choice, that you should have known better, that you ruined your life. That story loses its power when you realize it's based on a false premise. You didn't ruin anything. You created one timeline among infinite timelines, and other versions of you created other timelines. And they're all equally real. That doesn't mean your choices don't matter. They matter immensely. They determine which timeline you experience, but they don't determine the totality of what exists. And that distinction is freeing. You can make a choice, fully committed, fully present, and if it doesn't work out the way you hoped, you don't have to carry the burden of thinking you destroyed possibility. Possibility still exists, just in other branches. In this branch, you're dealing with the consequences of your choice, and that's your responsibility. But it's not a cosmic tragedy, it's just the particular path you're walking. And that makes it easier to try things, to take risks, to make bold choices, because you know that the version of you that played it safe, that chose security over adventure, that version exists too. You don't have to be that version. You can be the one who took the risk, who tried the thing, who showed up fully even knowing it might not work out. And if it doesn't work out, well, you'll deal with that. You'll witness that, you'll be present to that, and that's enough. That's all you can do. I want to talk about something else that comes up a lot. People ask me, if the multiverse is real, does that mean there's a version of me that's living my perfect life? A version that made all the right choices, avoided all the mistakes, found all the love and success and meaning I've been searching for? And the answer is, probably yes. If the multiverse is infinite, or even just very large, then yes, there's probably a version of you that's living what you would consider your ideal life. Everything went right for them. They're happy, fulfilled, loved, successful, whatever that means to you. But here's what's interesting. There's also a version living your worst nightmare. Everything went wrong for them. Every fear you have, they're living it. They're miserable, alone, broken, lost, and most importantly, there are countless versions living lives that are just slightly different from yours. Not better or worse, just different. Different choices, different outcomes, different textures. So what does that mean? Does it mean you should feel bad because some version has it better? Should you feel grateful because some version has it worse? I don't think either response is useful. Because here's the thing, you're not those versions. They're having their experiences and you're having yours. And comparing across branches doesn't actually tell you anything meaningful about how to live this branch. It's like comparing yourself to someone else. Sure, there's someone out there who's more successful than you, more attractive, more talented, more everything. And there's someone who has less, but neither of those comparisons tells you how to live your life. They just distract you from the actual task, which is to be present to your own experience. The same is true with parallel branches. Yes, there are versions of you living different lives, but you can't access their experiences. You can't become them. You can only be this version in this timeline. And the question is, how do you want to be this version? Not how do you compare to other versions. How do you want to show up in this timeline? And when you frame it that way, the comparison loses its power. Because you're not trying to be better than some other version or worse than some other version. You're trying to be present, conscious, witnessing this specific life, and that's not a competition, that's a practice. Now, we're coming toward the end of our time together, and I want to start gathering all of this into something you can hold on to, something you can carry with you. We've talked about a lot. The nature of the multiverse, the branching of timelines, the strangeness of identity, the transformation of regret, the creation of meaning, the responsibility of presence. And it might feel overwhelming. It might feel like too much to integrate. But here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to resolve every paradox. You don't have to be comfortable with the infinite branches and the probabilistic nature of reality. All you have to do is pay attention. All you have to do is be present to this moment, this timeline, this specific version of your life. That's it. That's the whole practice. Everything else is just context, just explanation, just framework. But the actual practice is simple. Be here, pay attention, witness this. And when you do that, when you really commit to that, something beautiful happens. You stop asking whether this is the right timeline, whether you made the right choices, whether some other version has it better. You stop comparing, you stop mourning, you stop dissociating, and you start experiencing, you start noticing, you start being alive to the specific, unrepeatable texture of this moment, this day, this life. And that's what the multiverse is for, not to overwhelm you or paralyze you or make you feel insignificant, but to reveal that this moment, right here, right now, is one possibility among infinite possibilities. And your consciousness, your awareness, your attention, that's what makes this possibility matter. Not objectively, not from some cosmic scoreboard, but to you, in your experience, in the only place meaning can actually exist, which is in consciousness itself. You are one specific path through infinite possibility. You cannot walk all paths, but you can witness this one with absolute attention. Your presence here is not destiny, it's not fate. It's not the universe's plan, it's responsibility. It's choice. It's the moment-by-moment act of staying conscious, staying present, staying here. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. So here's your mantra, if you need one. Something you can say to yourself when the vertigo hits, when the regret creeps in, when you feel lost in the infinite branches. I am one specific path through infinite possibility. I cannot walk all paths, but I can witness this one with absolute attention. My presence here is not destiny, it's responsibility. And that's enough. Say it slowly. Let each word land. Feel what it means to be one specific path. Feel the impossibility of walking all paths. Feel the power of witnessing this one. Feel the weight and the freedom of responsibility. And then come back to this moment, this breath, this body, this timeline, because this is where you are. This is where your consciousness lives. This is what you're here to witness. And it doesn't matter if some other version is living a better life or a worse life or just a different life. They're dealing with their timeline. You're dealing with yours. And your timeline needs you. It needs your attention, your presence, your consciousness. Because without you witnessing it, without you being here fully attentively, it's just an abstract possibility in the wave function. Just numbers in an equation. But with you here, conscious, aware, paying attention, it becomes real. It becomes your life. It becomes the story you're living, the experience you're having, the meaning you're creating, and that's what makes it significant. Not some external validation, not some cosmic judgment, just your presence, your witness, your attention. That's the gift the multiverse gives you. Not infinite choice. You never had that. You can only walk one path, but infinite context. The awareness that this path is one among many, which makes every moment on this path precious, specific, unrepeatable. So if this conversation has shifted something in you, if you feel less alone in the cosmic vertigo, less guilty about your regrets, more anchored in this specific, improbable life you're living, then I've done what I hoped to do. And I'd love to know. I'd love to hear what part of this landed for you, what you're still wrestling with, what questions are still alive in you. Leave a comment. Tell me where you are. Tell me what you're noticing. Because this isn't just me talking at you, this is a conversation. And your part of the conversation matters. Your experience, your questions, your struggles, they're part of the multiverse too. They're part of the infinite tapestry of consciousness trying to understand itself. And if you want more of these conversations, if you want to keep exploring the difficult questions together, the places where science and philosophy and lived experience intersect, then subscribe. Stay with me. Let's keep walking this path together. Because here's the beautiful thing. Right now, in this moment, infinite versions of you exist. Infinite timelines are unfolding. Infinite possibilities are being lived. But only one version is here with me right now. Only one version heard these specific words, in this specific order, in this specific moment, and that version is you. You're the one who stayed, the one who listened, the one who's still here, still present, still witnessing, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that in this timeline, in this branch of infinite branches, you and I got to share this space, this conversation, this moment. It won't happen again. Not exactly like this. Even if you watch this again, you'll be different. The moment will be different. This specific configuration of consciousness and attention and presence, it's unique to right now. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for lending me your attention. Thank you for being willing to sit with difficult ideas and uncomfortable truths. And now, go. Go back to your life. Go back to your timeline and pay attention to it. Be present to it. Witness it with everything you have, because it's yours. This specific, improbable, unrepeatable life is yours to experience. And somewhere, infinite versions of you exist. Infinite timelines are unfolding. Infinite possibilities are being lived. But only one of them is reading these exact words in this exact moment. Only one of them is feeling what you're feeling right now. Only one of them is about to decide what to do next. That one is you. And you're the only one who can witness what happens next. So go witness it. Go live it. Go be present to every moment of it. Because that's all any of us can do. That's all any of us have ever been able to do. We're one path through infinite possibility. And the meaning of that path is created through our attention, our presence, our willingness to be here fully, even knowing we can't be everywhere. That's the human condition. That's the gift and the burden of consciousness. And you're doing it right now, in this moment. You're witnessing, you're present, you're here. And that's enough. That's everything.